guys, welcome. Thanks for joining. I hope you will find this helpful in understanding some tricks and tips on getting the best out of your Hueforge prints. Now, to preference this, I do want to say I am by no means an expert. My ways of teaching is not the only way, the best way, nor the correct way. I'm just simply here to share some tricks and tips of the things that I have learned over my couple of months of learning Hueforge. Now, my hope is obviously as you go through these videos that you will start to learn and actually find your own ways to actually get the best possible prints that you can. So today's video is going to be made up of two parts. First, the simple way of adding to your filament library. So we'll be focusing on this section here. So how to add your colours using hex codes, and how to source your hex codes, and also about transmission distances. Now, in the second part of this video, I will be talking about the TD1 analyzer that is currently on the market and just giving some of my own sort of personal opinions and recommendations. So let's get into it. Now, if you have watched my previous video where I was setting a colour match up, I sort of explained in there a little bit, just a bit about what transmission distances is. So just as a very sort of quick reminder, the transmission distance, or TD as it's more commonly known, when we're talking about TD of a filament, what we are really sort of talking about is the opacity of a colour and how much light can travel through the filament. Now, what you will tend to find is something like a black will have quite a low TD, while something like a white or a yellow, that will have quite a high TD. Now, this is simply just because of the opacity of these colours. Now, obviously, a black is obviously darker in colour, so therefore not a lot of light will actually get through. As something like a white or a yellow, that's quite opaque, so therefore a lot more light will get through. Now, another important factor which is rather helpful when creating your images in Hueforge is to know what colour to use and getting these as close as possible to your desired colours. Now, especially this is obviously very important if you're trying to sort of colour match, but even if you're trying to do something like a colour pop where you've got like a grayscale image with, you know, a splash of red in it, and you're trying to just really zone in on that red. Now, it's very helpful to know sort of what colours are needed. So when you open Hueforge, what you'll notice that you'll have something called your filament library. Now, this is where you will find all the filaments that you may or may not have to hand. But what you will actually notice is there's actually a few options up here. You have PLA, PLA+, PTG, and sort of so on. Now, if you click on one of these, you will see actually there is a huge list of pre-installed options. Now, you've got sort of the eSun, you know, IIID Max. There's a lot of options that are already here. And actually you'll notice that these are on the unowned tab. Now, I don't own any of these, so obviously that's why they're not checked. But if you come over to the PLA, you'll notice here that I've got my owned. Now, these are all the list of filaments that I do actually sort of own. Now, you can make it simpler for yourself, so you could go down each one of these lists and you could sort of just tick, say, you know, I had an eSun orange. If I was to sort of tick that, you would notice here that it's then moved up into the owned. Now, you'll also notice that over here it's got the preset TD. Now, what I have actually found is that these are not always accurate. Now, when I compared some of what I already sort of pre-own to some of the hex codes available on a manufacturer's website, what I actually found is a lot of them are incorrect. So, to make this easier for myself to know exactly what filaments I did have to hand, what I decided to do was to actually add each one of my filaments manually. Now, I understand that this actually can be quite time consuming, but to get the best out of your prints and get a true representation to what is actually shown on your screen to what actually will come out of your printer, I do feel this is the best way to do this. So, to do this, you will need to find the hex code for your filament. Now, there is a few ways to do this. Manufacturers such as Bamboo actually display this already on their website. Now, if you was to go on the Bamboo website and go to the filaments and select one of the options, obviously I've got PLA Basic here. Now, if you was to sort of scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll actually notice that they've got these hex codes or these random sort of looking letters, numbers, sort of codes. Now, I can hear most of you screaming out or screaming internally, what is a hex code? Now, simple terms, hex codes are a 6-digit code made up of letters and numbers. Sometimes they're just made up of just numbers or just letters. Hex codes are a universal way of sort of describing a colour and are based off the red, green, and blue colour model, which is obviously that's been around for many, many years now. It was used sort of in the very early days, sort of photography and things like that as well. So hex codes go back a long, long way. So this is sort of one way you can sort of go and look through a manufacturer's website. The other way is there is this website here, which is called 3D Filament Profiles. Now, what you can actually do here is you can see here it says brand. Now, let's just compare what's said on here to what is also on the Bamboo Labs website. So if we go Bamboo Labs and we'll go PLA and select go. Now, as you notice, this brings up all of the options here with your hex codes available. So if you sort of can pick one of these and compare to Bamboo specifically. So if we look here, you've got this one here, Bamboo Green 00 AE42. Now, if we was to go onto the Bamboo's website, we'll just sort of scroll down, look for the green. Right here, you can actually see it says exactly the same, 00 AE42. Now, what if the manufacturer's website isn't available? So what if it's not on there? So what you can do here is if you, again, click on filter by type, come back to here. Now, I use a majority of the time King Rune. I don't think it's sort of a very good sort of brand of filament. So type in here King Rune. Again, click PLA. This tab here, material type, I generally will leave sort of unticked. I mean, you know, again, it's got sort of a lot of options available to you. You know, you can sort of go basic, PLA, and again, just hit and go. This would actually bring up sort of all the filaments that are actually available. Now, if you sort of go down the list here, you'll sort of notice here you've got, again, all the hex codes. Now, if you look over into this portion here, you'll notice here that it's got this TD thing here. Now, how accurate these actually are, I'm not 100% convinced. Obviously, I do have a TD1, which does prove a little bit more accurate than possibly these ones. But as a starting point, I think this would be a very great place to sort of start. And especially if you do not have a TD1 analyzer, I think they're not really far off. So if you sort of look here, this is telling me that the King Rune Green is a 4.2. So when we get to the next video, we will actually compare the two, and we will look at how accurate they may or may not be. But if you sort of click on these as well, you'll actually see here that it brings up alternative options. If it's saying, if you sort of think that the 4.2 might be a bit higher, it's then giving a second sort of suggestion. Obviously, if you have a TD1, you could come in and make your own suggestion. But as a starting block, I think this is a very, very good idea. And in terms of getting your hex codes, I personally think that this is pretty accurate. And when I've compared it to sort of the manufacturers' websites, they've been matching. So I'm quite confident to say that this is a very good website to use for finding your hex codes. So how do we then import from your hex code from here into your Hueforge? So there's a couple of options. So you could simply highlight over this one and click on Control. Okay, it clicks in there. But you could obviously highlight it and then click Control V, or you can wait for this to pop up. And if you simply hover over here, it does say click to copy to clipboard. So if we just click on that, and then if we head back into Hueforge, what you'll notice down here in your filament library is it will say new filament. Now, obviously, I do already have mine preset in here, but say that I didn't and I wanted to add it. The way that you'll do that is you've already copied it to your clipboard. So you can simply just paste it in here again by clicking Control and V. Now this automatically uploads that. You can see here. And then all you'll do next is you would click OK. Now it will ask you for the type, and what this will actually do is this will actually separate these out into these tabs here. Now I generally always leave mine as a PLA rather than having to click through these various different tabs to find the PLA that I'm sort of looking for, if it's PLA plus. But what I would do, say if this was, for argument's sake, PLA plus, is I would go, King Rune, and then I would just say plus. That way it sort of keeps it in line with the rest of them. And then next I would add its name. So this is a green. Now on this website back here, you see that it's sort of given me two options. It's given me a 4.2 or a 7.2. Now personally, I already know that my bamboo green is a 2.7. So here you would simply just write in a 2.7 and you would click add and close. Now if you come down your list here, you would actually find that it's sitting right here. So it's already added it into your owned section. And that's probably the most simplest way to add in all of your filaments that you actually have to hand. Okay guys, so the next part of this video, I'm simply just going to be talking about transitional distances and a couple of options that you've got on the easy ways to find out what your transitional distance may be. Now, one of the ways on the Makerworld website is you've got these transitional distance finders. Now, these are quite an effective, easy way to look what your transitional distances are. They're quite simple in the way they work. Now, they're not 100% accurate, but they are very, very close. And the way that these work is, if I show you the back here, what you'll notice is these have numbers on the back. Now, when you flick over to the front, if you sort of try to look, it's better if you have a bit of a light shining through, but what you would actually notice is you've got these numbers, and the number that is the most obviously seen before the last number that you can't see If you take this number and times it up by 0.8, this will give you what your transitional distance may be. Now, as I said, it's not completely accurate, and I will link this particular one down in the description box below, so you can go and sort of check it out for yourself. Now, the option that I like the most, now this is a sort of a two-part sort of answer to this one, is the TD1. That's this little device right here. Now, this is a device currently on the market by Ajax, and it's quite simple to use. What you'll do is you will take a bit of filament, you will slide it in the side, it will scan that for you, and it will actually pop up to say what your TD is. Now, this is King Ring Green, and it's telling me that this is a 2.7. Now, while I find this part of the TD1 quite helpful, quite useful, and actually generally quite accurate, what is not accurate is actually what we've just spoke about, and that's actually the hex code. So if I was to now show you what comes up on my screen, you can now see what the difference is. Hey guys, sorry for interrupting this part of the video. I just actually wanted to pop in here and quickly add a bit of a preference in and sort of say to you about a little giveaway opportunity that I have decided to do. So I know that the TD1 is in very high demand. I know that a lot of places around the world have pretty much sold out or do not have it in stock. Now, here in the UK, which is where I am based, we have one company that currently has the PVC boards in stock. Now, what I want to offer to one lucky person is the opportunity to own a TD1 completely free of charge. I will cover the postage and I'll cover the whole unit. All I actually ask is that you give my page a little share, just sort of give the comments a little boost, to give this page a little like, and hopefully get the following up. But as a thank you for all of your ongoing support, I know a lot of you already follow me on my Makerworld and have given me a tremendous amount of support, and I'm really, really thankful for that. So as a thank you from me to you, I will be offering one lucky person a TD1 of your own. Well, I'll let you get back to watching the video, and once again, thank you ever so much for your support. It really does mean an absolute lot, and I truly appreciate it. Thank you. So now that we're back in Hueforge, this is what the screen will look like when you insert a piece of filament into your TD1 analyzer. Now, it's obviously connected up by a USB, and that USB plugs into your computer, and it does need to be plugged in while you are using it. Now, as I explained, the TD is, I think, pretty accurate. I have obviously done quite a few prints using this method, and they generally come out as they're supposed to. Now, what I have found, like I said, is the hex codes are not completely right. And the way to best show you this is if you look at this screen here, you will see that on the TD1 analyzer, it is telling me that the hex code is this, which is 87FFD4. Now, the King Ring Green is quite similar, I would say almost identical to the Bamboo Green. Now, using the method that I previously showed you, which is using this website right here, what you will notice is the hex code provided is actually substantially different from previous. So if we was to once again copy this hex code in, you will now notice that actually that is more like the filament that I have placed into the TD analyzer. So from this point, what you would do is if you hit OK, and in the same way that we previously added the filament details in, you would simply just again type in here what the brand is. So again, I will just put King Rune, and obviously I do already have a King Rune Green saved in my own section, so I will just give this a completely different name so I can distinguish against the two. So this time we will say green, but for me I will put test, but you can just leave it as whatever colour you may have. And then you hit add and close. Now if we come back over to here in our own section and you scroll down your list, you'll actually find that again it has actually placed it already in there for you. Now that's probably the most easiest way to upload your filament colours with the correct hex code and also the correct TD in there as well. Now that's, again, it's a very, very simple way of doing it. Now what you also do need to remember is that you do need to be saving these settings. Again, coming up to the options, clicking save defaults, and this will make sure that it is saved, because the last thing you want to do is go through and change all of your hex codes and your TDs, forgetting to hit save and just closing it down, because you'll have to do all that work again. So that's the easiest way to make sure that you have saved it. And I mean, even if you're adding multiple filaments at a time, if you just sort of save sort of after every couple, that will actually help you in not losing your work that you've done. Well, that's the conclusion of this video. I really hope you found it somewhat helpful, and thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one.